All right. Hi everyone. Welcome to a very basic JavaScript refresher slash practice class. We are going to do a bunch of small syntax practices, basically understand some common functions that are available in JavaScript. If the last class felt overwhelming for you, this class is for you. We'll try to cover a bunch of common functions, methods, objects that JavaScript provides you out of the box. And after the class, we'll try to solve a few medium and hard assignments from this week. O1-JS is where you'll find all the assignments from the first week. Week 1-offline class 1 is where you'll find all the things that we will do in today's video. All of this code is present where? It's present on github.com/100xdevs-code2-/assignments. So this link right here. Go to this link. You'll find it somewhere on the course dashboard. You'll actually find it right here. So click on assignments here. It will take you to this page. On this page, click on code, click on download zip. Once you download the zip file, unzip it locally on your Mac or a Windows machine, and then open this folder in Visual Studio Code. How can you do that? Go to Visual Studio Code, click on file, click on open, and open that specific folder here. Once you do, you should see O1-JS and week-1, these two folders here in your local VS Code. Now, if you're watching this video later on, this will sort of change. We'll keep adding more assignments here. So you might see more folders here, but as long as you see at least week 1 here, you're sorted. It means you have week 1 on your machine locally. From here is where we will start to explore a few of these files and start to understand some common syntax. Cool. Let's start from the first one. Let's go to level 1/string.js. So this will have a bunch of string related functions, basically a bunch of common functions that JavaScript gives you out of the box. So you can just use them for doing what is called string manipulation. Given a string variable, for example, you can have, where a equal to or where name equal to Harkirat. If you want to do a bunch of things with this a name variable, you can use some of these out of the box methods. That is what we'll try to go one by one. Okay? Number 1, get length. And the way I would urge you to sort of test this locally would be copy this code, go to Replit. So repl.com, go here, sign up here. Once you do, click on create REPL here, Node.js, create REPL. And this will give you an online IDE. Basically think of it as VS Code but running online. And if you paste your code here, you can actually run it and see the final output of your code. For example, I pasted a get length function here. Now, what are functions? We discussed in the last video. It is a place where you can put a lot of logic together. Functions take something as an input, do some manipulation inside, and then can sometimes also return something as an output. A simple example of this was last week we did function sum a comma b return a plus b, and then I said const sum equal to or whatever final sum equal to sum of 3 comma 4, and then if I log final sum here, you will see the final output is what? 7. Where does it come from? Control reaches here, 3 and 4 go here. We return 3 plus 4, which goes to this variable, and then we log it. This is what a function is, and we are going to write a bunch of such functions. The first one is get length. This we did last week as well. What does it do? As you can see, you take a string as an input, and then you first log the original string as such, and then you say the length of this string is str.length. So this is the thing that I wanted to discuss. Okay, whenever you have a string object or string data type or string variable in JavaScript, you can simply call dot length on it, and it will give you the current length of the string. How does it happen here? That just JavaScript provides you out of the box. This in itself is a variable, an object, a function, something which gives you access to dot length. You can simply use it and print the current length of the string. We are going to just look at a bunch of more such API, sort of APIs or whatever functions, things that JavaScript provides you out of the box in strings. This is the first one, which is length. The high level thing to learn here is just this, that given a string, str.length, if you log it, it will give you the length of the string. Cool. There you go. Now let's look at the second one. The second one, if you go and open this file in your local VS Code, find index of. Let's copy this over. What does this say? Okay, bhai, given a word, for example, hello world, what is the index of this second word? Or given a word Harkirat Singh, what is the index of, let's say, Singh? What does index of mean? It means at what point is this second word present. So you have to write a function, takes two inputs. First is a long string, second is a smaller string, and you have to tell where does this smaller string appear here. For example, the answer for this one should be, where does world appear here? It appears at index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It appears at the 6th index. Is there a JavaScript function that gives you access to this? The answer is yes. The answer is str.indexOf. So if you call indexOf with a certain target, कि हाँ भाई, where can I find this? This thing will return you that index. And as you can see, it is 6. What if I make this hello? Can you guess what the answer would be? The answer would be 0. What if I make it something random that is not present in the string? If you give it something random that's not present in the string, it will give you -1, which means did not find it anywhere. Cool. The next thing after this is, okay, bhai, I get it, I can find the first index, but what if world is present twice? In this case, what will this index of give me? It will give me, I asked for hello, so let's do world. It gives me still 6. So it gives me the index of the first world, not the second world. What if I want the index of the last world? Let's say there were 3 worlds. What if I want the syntax of this last world and not the first one? The answer is, you can be like, give me str.lastIndexOf, and it will give you the index of the last world. As you can see, 18, which is basically this thing right here. Cool. So hopefully you're getting that JavaScript provides you a bunch of auxiliary helper methods for strings. What have we learned until now? The 3 we have learned until now is length, last index of, and then index of. Cool. These are the 3 we have learned. Length may, it is not a function. You simply do str.length, but index of is actually a function. So you do str.lastIndexOf, and you actually give it some argument inside. Cool. Let's move on. Last index of is done. Let's look at the next one. It's called get slice. There are 3 arguments here. The name itself says slice, which means you want, if you want a certain slice of your string, you can use this function, which in this case is give me the everything between the 0th and the 5th index. What is the 0th index? This. What is the 5th index? 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry. If this is the word, this is the first index. Sorry, 0th index, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Everything between 0th and the 5th index give me. So if I run this, what will I get? I get hello. Harkirat, is 5 the 5th index included here? Does it say HELLO and space? Or is the output just HELLO? That is a good question. Even I don't know the answer. Let's see. Let's put 3 Ks here. What does it give you? It still says hello, which means it says everything starting from 0 but until 5 does not include the last index. HELLO. It included 0th, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th index. It did not include the 5th index, which means the str.slice function, which is what we're calling here, only includes everything starting from here but before this. Cool. This hopefully does not seem too confusing. Why have we written a function separately? I can totally be like, I don't need any of this. I can totally be like Harkirat Singh dot slice 0,5. I can simply call dot slice on a string like this. I can also, and as you can see, what is the answer here from 0 to 5? I need to log it. Let answer equal to this, console.log answer. So this works as well. You don't have to write the function and encapsulate everything. So it prints Harki, sus, but okay. And if I can also, like, if this feels jarring, I can also be something like this, const value equal to Harkirat Singh followed by value.slice 0,5. Cool. Hopefully that is clear. Simple stuff here, nothing too complicated. One more small thing, let me introduce. Slice ke saath hi there is something called substr, which is substring. As you can see, it is depreciated. the hyphen comes here because it's no longer used. You should use slice if you want to do this. If you want a smaller subset of a string, use slice. But in case you want to use substring, which is something that was present a few years ago, then how is this different from slice? It will still give you a substring. It will start from 0, but it will give you a length of 5. So the second argument here is the length that you want. If you start from 0 only, then basically slice and substring are the same thing. Because what does this second one say? It says everything from 0 until the 5th index. What does this one say? Everything starting from 0, but 5 characters I need. But if I make this 2 here and 2 here, now they're like completely different. The second one will give you, can you guess what it will give you? It will give you RKI. What will the first one give you? It will give you RKI RA, Rakira. Why? Because this one, the second argument is the length of the final string, which in this case is 5. This one, the second argument is up until what point do you want it. Let's actually log both answer and answer 2 and make sure everything I'm talking about is true and I'm not talking out of my ass here. So as you can see, the first one is Rakira, second one is RKI. Cool. Hopefully simple stuff. Just a bunch of helper methods that can be good to know as you want to do manipulations. If you did not know this, how would you have found a smaller substring of given a string? You can write this logic on your own. For example, this slice is the same as me writing a function. Let me call my function cut it, that takes a string as an input, a start index as an input, and an end index as an input. And I can totally be like, let new string equal to an empty string. And then I can iterate over the original string. Okay, bhaiya, for let I equal to 0, I less than str.length, I plus plus. If, there you go, AI helped me here. I is hopefully this is clear. What do I say? I say I'm going to iterate over the original string, and only if I is greater than equal to start index or I is less than equal to end index, I'm going to do new str equal to new str plus this thing, which means I'll only add to new str the indexes that that lie between start index and end index. This should actually be less than end index, because as I said, slice mein the last one isn't actually included. It is everything starting from 2 until 4, not 5 in this case, like one letter before. So this logic, I think, does the same thing. Let's print this answer 2. And then let's also print what cut it gives you. So I'm going to simply be like console.log cut it. Cross value equal to all right. Let's see if this answer 2 and this calling cut it directly gave us the same answer. Run it. This one does, this one does not. Why? Because I'm not returning new str here. But if I do return it, RKI. So I've written the same thing myself. You can always write these yourself, but it is always good to, have all of this done in one line. The slice internally, I'm sure, does something like this only, whoever wrote it in JavaScript. But always good to use these than, writing them yourself. Feel free to pause here. I'm going to proceed on to the next one. Get substring is done. Replace string is the next one. Name itself is pretty self-explanatory. What does it say? It says, hello world. Let's replace world with JavaScript. Again, let's just remove the functions here. Let me directly show you something like this. So const str equal to hello world console.log str.replace str comma world with JavaScript. Now if I run this, you will see the output is world. We're going to learn something new today. Or are we? Let's see. If this was a live class, this would have been a bounty. str, oh, there you go. These are like good bounties. All right, let's try it one more time. It says hello JavaScript. What did I do? I said str, which was the string. I just called replace on it, and I gave it 2 arguments. Argument number 1, what I need to replace, which is world. Argument number 2, what I need to replace it with. What if this thing is not present here? The world is not present here. It will just return you the same string. It returns hello versus world, which is this thing right here. It did not replace because it did not find the first word. If it does find it, let's say I say replace he with JavaScript, it will replace this he with JavaScript. It says JavaScript hello. What's that? All right, cool. Split string. This one's nice. Let me just actually, I mean, you can read through this if you want. Like this is basically just, writing a function that does the same thing inside here. I'm just going to share it directly here. What if I have something like this? Hi, my name is Harkirat. Const value equal to this. You can, so the commonly used place where you do split is const words. What if I say extract all the words from this in an array? Value dot split space console.log words. Now if you look at it, you will see the output is an array. It says hi, my name, I was Harkirat. I have an array of 5 elements here. That is what split does. It splits your string based on the delimiter. What is a delimiter? Basically what you want to split your thing on. What if the delimiter I put here as comma? There are no commas here. So it will just give you an array with a single string. But what if I add a delimiter as h? What will you see? You will see from an empty word and then my name is iOS space, and then h becomes the delimiter, and then you see Harkirat. This is the very bad example. It will probably confuse you. So let me just revert back to comma. Let me put comma everywhere instead of, spaces. And I hope you get what exactly split does. It says कि भैया in this string I'm going to, this will be the first element of my final array, this will be the second element, this will be the third element. It lets you split your string into an array given a delimiter. Cool. Look at the words here. It says these 5 words, which is what comes from here. All right. Trim basically is const value equal to, let's say, Harkirat Singh and a bunch of space at the end. Sometimes you add like some space in the beginning and the end of your string by mistake. You might have done this on a website. You go to a website and you're putting in your email and you ended up adding some space in the beginning and the end. Trim lets you, as the name suggests, trim out the space in the beginning and the end. That's all that it lets you do. So let me just fix the syntax and run it. And when I do, you will see the final outcome is Harkirat Singh. It just trimmed out the extra spaces in the beginning and in the end. Harkirat, does it split, trim out the space in the middle as well? Answer is no. It says, yeah, exactly. It does not. Only from the beginning and the end. It's for just trimming out the extra spaces at the beginning and at the end. To upper and to lower are 2 functions that should be self-explanatory. What would to upper do? It would convert Harkirat Singh to uppercase Harkirat Singh. And what would to lower do? If this was, Harkirat Singh with a capital H, what do you think to lowercase will do? It will simply, not this one, let's just do to lowercase. And as you can see, H became small. So fairly small by stuff, fairly simple stuff, hopefully. Like very basic things to practice out. I would urge you to, try some of these out locally. The only good ones here are slice and maybe replace split is a good one. So split and slice are good ones you might use in the future. Everything else is just simple small boy stuff. Here let's move to integers or numbers. Generally numbers the 2 important ones are let's see, what have I done here? Let me copy the first part and put it on Replit. I say that there is a function called explain parse int that we call. Okay, what function are we actually calling? We are calling the parse int function on some certain value inside this function. Let me actually again trim this down and show you the same thing in a slightly more cleaner fashion. There you go. So as you can see, this is what that's what the whole logic that did these three things. Let me run this. What output does it give me? The output that it gives me is nothing. Can you guess why? Because I did not log these. So let me log all three of these. If you don't log something, it'll get evaluated and nothing will get printed on the screen on the right. So you have to log them to actually see the output. All right, let me run these three. How can I clear this up? There you go. Run. As you can see, it says 42, 42, 3. What does this mean? Parse int. This is a global function. I did not have to do like, some string dot slice, which we're doing right now. It's a global function, which basically means I can simply call it in JavaScript anywhere. And what will it do? It will parse from a string to an integer. It will convert this to this. The quotes will go away basically. This works for most cases. If you gave a right number, it gets converted into a number. If you gave a number followed by some gibberish, or even before there is some gibberish, it is fine. It will get converted into then it does not get converted. If you have some gibberish at the end, then it is fine. But if you have some gibberish before, after, in the middle, then it gives you something else, because it's supposed to parse it into a number, an integer. And how does it know by what this gets converted to? But if there is some text at the very end or alphabets at the very end, it just assumes it will just pick the parts in the front. All right. And again, as it says, parse int. What is an integer? Integer is something that does not have any decimals after it, which is why it will just pad it down, and hence the output here is 3. If I run this, I see 42, 42, 3, which means what is it doing? It's parsing a number into an integer. Similarly, there's another one called parse float, which, as the name suggests, parses to a float. What is a float? It's basically something that can have decimal numbers, which is why the only different thing here is the thing at the very end. Cool. So parse int, parse float are two important things to keep in mind when discussing sort of numbers. There are a few other things you can do which are not mentioned here. For example, you can do a math dot. I think we'll cover math library later on. Yeah, never mind. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to arrays. So this is slightly more advanced, but again, like very straightforward if you look at it. Number 1, push. Feel free to look at this whole code. I'm just going to write some code here. Const initial array equal to 1, 2, 3. What if I want to manipulate this array? I can call initial array dot push 2. And now if I log initial array, I hope you can guess what the output would be. The output is 1, 2, 3, 2, because I also pushed something here. If you can push, can you also pop? Yes, you can. If I replace push with pop, as you can see, it becomes 1, 2. This is the initial input, something I popped from the very end. Harkirat, what if I want to pop from the front? Great question. You can call shift. What does this do? It pulls something out from the front of the array. So now if I run this, you see 2, 3. Harkirat, what if I want to put something in the front of the array? I say, great question. You would use unshift and you give it the value that you want to put in the front. So if I call unshift, it puts something in the front of the array. Cool. So these were simple functions to manipulate arrays, to put something at the end, remove from the end, pull something from the front, add something to the front. So push, pop, shift, and unshift are something we have done. Concat is the next one. We understood push, but what if you have two arrays? Second array, 1, 2, 3, and second array is 4, 5, 6. How can I sort of merge these together? And the answer is concat. You can do initial array dot concat second array. If I run this, you will see the final array becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can we do this another way, Harkirat? Yes, you can totally be like for let I, like create a for loop that iterates over all the second array. Initial array dot push second array of I. If I run this, it gives me the same output as above. If I actually log initial array here, but it does not, because I said push. What should I say? I should say concat don't need this. Sorry, it's a little late at night. Now let's try it out. Gives me an error. Beautiful. Now I'm 100% sure it will be fine. And we're wrong again. Now I will look at the syntax. Let's see. r1.concat r2. That looks right. What did I say here? Initial array.concat. This. Can you guess? I did not do a final array equal to this. And then I should print final array. Hopefully you were able to figure this out faster than me. All right, 1 2 3 4 5 6, 1 2 3 4 5 6. The same thing that we get if we iterate over the second array. Cool. Concat is done. How is it different from push? Push may the second argument is a number. Push concat may the second argument is an array. That's the difference. All right. For each. So if you want to iterate over an array, what's one way? One way is you go for let I equal to 0, I less than initial array dot length I plus plus, and then you can do whatever you want to do, which let's say we want to log all of the elements. Run. If I run this, what do I see here? I see a bunch of things because I'm not logging the ith element. Let me do that, and then I see 1 2 3 in every iteration. Initial array of I got logged, and since there are 3 elements here, first 1 got logged, then 2, then 3. All right. Now, since we know this is an array, and we don't want to, let's say, do this access the ith element in such an ugly way, what you can do is you can be like initial array dot for each. I think this is a function inside. Yeah. Now this is where things will get slightly complicated. I discussed callback functions a while back. We are going to use them next. So let's comment this out, take a breather, and keep in mind that this is something new, fresh, and interesting that's going to boggle some of your head. If you're on this video until this point, I'm assuming you're still learning. This is your initial bit. So this part, bear with me for a minute here. I'm going to write some code. Function log thing. str. I've written a function which takes something as an input, which should be a string, and then logs that string on the screen. I'm going to copy this thing and paste it here. What did I do? I said by initial array dot for each. This is a function I called. And what did I give as an argument to the function? I gave another function. I'm passing log thing, this function, inside this for each function. And why am I doing this? I am doing this because for each says, okay, bhai, you give me a function that takes a string as an input, and I'm going to, for every element of this array, call this function one by one. I repeat, for each says, okay, whatever function you give me inside, I am going to call that function for each one of these elements in this array. So if the array is 1 2 3, and if I call initial array dot for each log thing, this function will, this is similar. Yeah, so this is similar to me doing log thing of 1 followed by log thing of 2 followed by log thing of 3. For each, what it says is you give me initial array, you give me a function to call, and I'm going to call this function for every element of this array. So if you write this one line of code, or if you line these 3 lines of code, it is the same thing. If I run this, what do you think you should come on the screen? 1 2 3 comes on the screen, and then 1 2 3 again comes on the screen from these 3 logs. So for each is very similar to a for loop, only its syntax is slightly convoluted because it expects a function as an argument, which is something we discussed in the last class, which is that these are called callbacks, which basically means कि भैया given one function, it is going to call another function. Let's go to XLE and understand this a little better. JavaScript में there's just this weird concept. Some languages have it, some languages don't. कि one function can be passed in to another function. So if there is a function here called let's see, log, that actually logs some hello world to the screen. Let me also write that thing here. So let me write function log that just does a hello world log. Hello world 1 log 1, and then another function called log2 that says hello world 2. I just have two functions right now. If I call the first one, this gets logged. If I call the second one, this gets logged. Now I'm going to add a third function here called log what's present, which takes something as an input. I can call it callback, I can call it fn, I can call it whatever I want. Let me call it fn. And it says, bhaiya, whatever function you give me, I am just going to call that function, period, full stop. I don't care. I don't expect a string here. I don't expect a number here. I expect a function signature here, which means I can call log what's present with either log1 or log2. And whatever I call it with, fn becomes that, and log what's present actually calls it. So if I run this, you will see hello world 2 on the screen, but I never called log2. I just passed log2 as an argument, and this function actually called a log2. So that's what a callback function is. If I have to show it visually, you have a log1 function, you have a log2 function, and then we have another function called log what's present. Let's call it log it. I called this function right here. I called a log it, but I passed whatever log2 as an argument to it. Log2 reached here, like literally the signature reached here, and then this function actually ended up calling log2, which is how you see hello world 2 logged here on the screen. Okay. Breathe here. If you don't understand it, it's fine. We will discuss callbacks and asynchronous programming in more detail in the next class. But this is a high level of the only thing to learn here is for each. Everything else, we don't understand callbacks yet. It is fine. We will learn it eventually. This is how for each looks like. And if that feels weird as well, feel free to come back to this part when we're actually done with the callback bits. All right. Let's see. Oh, I forgot. There we go. Feel free to take a screenshot of this if this right now feels a little hard to understand. 1, 2, 3 got logged. What if I log? Is the string here? What should I see here? Hopefully it's clear. You see, 1 is a string, 2 is a string, 3 is a string. All right, going to proceed. Map and filter and find are 3 important ones. Let's get to them later and then sort. Okay, map, filter, find, sort. These are all important, and these are also, all of these will require some knowledge of callbacks. So thinking if, yeah, we should do this, but let's discuss callbacks in a little more detail before we actually proceed to these 4. All right, after thinking for a bit, I feel like I'm going to cover this in a dedicated video. So callbacks followed by maps, filters, find, and sort are things we're going to cover in a separate video, probably the one that comes after it, after this one. So let's move on. We have covered everything in level 1 now. Only these things we have missed from arrays, and this we will cover later. Let's go to level 2 now, which has 5 things to cover. Let's start with the first one called classes. So this is a very Java concept वैसे देखा जाए तो कि classes are present in many languages, and there is a high level reason for why they're present. Classes let you sort of describe they let you put a bunch of properties of a certain type together. What do I mean by this? For example, animals is a good example here. कि हाँ भाई, every animal, what does it look like? An animal has hopefully legs. Could be 2, could be 4. Like, yeah, I guess 2 legs or 4 legs. It could either bark, or it could meow or something else. So every animal has a different sort of property associated, and if I want to describe an animal here, I could either do it like this: const dog equal to name doggy, and then leg count 2 followed by whatever speaks bow wow. I could do this, but what if I want to I want to print on the screen okay bhaiya animal X bow house with 2 legs. What if I want to print this on the screen? What will I write? I will write something like bhaiya console.log animal dog of name space dog of speaks. Let's start with that much. Let me log this on the screen. And what do you see on the right? You see animal doggy bow bows. I can also add leg count if needed. Let me actually replace this. Let that be actually. All right, we have a dog. Let's add a cat. I have a cat as well. Meow. Now I have to do the same thing. What can I do? Harkirat, you can just replace a dog with cat here, or you can add another line, replace dog with cat here. I say yes, you are not wrong. You can do this, but do you see something here? Do you see repeated logic? I am writing this whole thing. I've just changed this thing right here, and everything else I am writing like this. Alag se I'm writing. Harkirat, it's fine. You can just create a function, call it print str, and inside the function take the object as an input, animal, and then here you can be like, by depending on whatever the input is, I'm going to log the output for that specific animal. So now I can call print str for dog and the same thing for cat. Now if I run this, what do I see on the right? Animal doggy bow bow, animal cat meow. Harkirat, I see undefined. Where are these coming from? Great question. They are coming because I'm logging the output of print str, and what does print str return me? Nothing. I can actually just call print str. I don't have to log print str because the logging is happening inside. If this function was returning rather than logging, then I should have logged here. But since we already log here, it should be fine. Cool. This works. But what if in the future there are more such functions? Ke bhaiya animal walks on X legs, things like these. You have these functions separately in various places present. Jabki ke bhaiya every animal, be it a dog, be it a cat, are going to have these 3 set of properties. And they're also going to have some similar functions that they need to run. Only the body of the function will change based on these values. So why not combine this together, give a structure of every animal is what classes let you do. The name itself says class. So the name isn't really good. I mean, if you've heard of classes before, if you've never heard of classes in any other language, then the first time you hear class, it feels like, why did we say class? But generally in computer science, classes and objects are 2 very important sort of buzzwords / jargon to know. Classes means give out a structure of something that's reusable and used in multiple places. For example, animals. An animal has whatever a leg count and speaks and then the name. I define a blueprint of every animal. Okay, bhai, every animal. I create this function called constructor inside. I say every animal has a name, has a leg count, and has a whatever speaks. And then inside I do this dot name equal to something, this dot leg count equal to this thing, and this I say this dot speaks equal to speaks. All right. Ignore this. I say, bhai, anyone who wants to create their animal, don't create it like this. Let dog equal to name dog, and the rest of the properties. Don't create it like this. Create it like this. Let dog equal to new animal with the name dog, with the leg count 2, with the dogs have 4 and speaks bow wow. Don't do this. Don't do this. Do this. Why here? What is the benefit of this? Why are you doing this specific thing? And what exactly is this syntax? The answer is this is creating an object of a class. A class is a blueprint. Basically, think of it like someone created an architectural map of a building. That is the blueprint. But the actual building, let's say, was created in Delhi also, in Mumbai also, in Rajasthan also. So that blueprint, that one architectural paper, can actually be converted into real objects multiple times. Those are called objects. For example, the dog variable here. But what are classes? It's the blueprint right here. So I can do a cat. Meow. Why is this good? As I said, there are a few functions that every animal will have. For example, speak is a common function. Every animal will speak, or this might be like, what is this? Why is this happening here? The answer is, if you have a game, let's say, game there might be animals, and animals might speak, and there could be multiple animals. So you're adding a speak function that simply logs ke bhaiya, I don't know, hi there plus this dot speaks. So what will this do? Anytime the speak function is called, that specific animal would speak. For example, I've initialized a dog variable and a cat variable. I can do dog dot speak. What will this do? If I run this, it says hi there, bhau bhau. If I do cat dot speak, it says hi there, meow. Why is this cool? This is cool because now everything I've created in the blueprint I create once, rather than writing separate functions like I was in the last slide a few seconds ago. I say everything I'm going to put together, and then whoever wants to create an animal like this, and then call the speak function, or legs function, or walk function, so on and so forth. So this is what a class is. You have a blueprint, this is what the class would look like, and then you have the blueprint has two things. What are the attributes of this thing? In a building, it would be the number of floors it has, the color it has on the outside, things like these. And then it has functions. In case of a building, it might be flush the sewerage down out of the building. So if that function is called, that sewerage gets flushed out of the building. A very weird example I just thought of. Probably need to do a little more practice before thinking of examples like these. Similarly, here we say animal can have these properties. Name, leg count, speaks. You can also add in the future other things. Animal color is a good one. Animals can be white, pink, green, yellow, red. So all these attributes you put there. And the second thing classes have are functions, which are something that's actually happening on that object. This is how you call a function on the object. This is how you create the object. Call function on object. Cool. One last thing I will introduce here, and then we can say we know classes well, is going to be static. You can have functions like these, which I just showed you. You can also have static functions on a class, and static functions are these aren't associated to an object. These are associated to the class itself. They are associated to the blueprint. For example, when you have a building in the real world and it has a piece of paper which has its architectural diagram, the piece of paper is white in color. The objects can be red, yellow, green, blue, whatever. The final buildings can be any color, but the blueprint is white in color. Similarly, here in the animal class, let's say you want to store there are multiple kinds of animals or species on the world. There are aliens also, there are humans also, so on and so forth. So I could in the future have another class called aliens. And static methods can be this is an alien, this is an animal. Telling I don't care if it's a dog or a cat. That is something that is associated to an object. Static methods are my type console.log animal. Static methods are I am an animal. This method is not associated to any object. It is actually associated to the class itself. So I can be like animal dot my type, and if I call this on the animal object with the capital A, which means this animal object right here, it would log animal on the screen. What does this tell me? It tells me कि भैया, what if I call animal.speak here? Harkiyat, will it work? Can you think of it? No, it gives you an error. What is the error? Animal.speak is not a function. This speak function can be called on an object of the class, cannot be called directly on the class. If you want to call something directly on the class, you make it a static method. That's the high level difference. If you have a static method, it can be called without instantiating the objects. But if you don't have a static method, these can only be called once you have an object. Cool. That's a high level of a class. There are a few other concepts. Inheritance is the most common one you might have heard of in classes, but we're not discussing that just yet. We will get to it when we most probably get to TypeScript. Cool. Let's move on to the next one. Let's move on to the date class in JavaScript. All right, let's look at a few time related functions. Basically the global date class that JavaScript gives you. This is the global class that JavaScript gives you, which, what do I mean by global? I mean that it is present for you to use out of the box. Just how you can just write function, you can just write var, you can just write const. Date is not exactly a primitive. It's more like a class that has been pre-made for you, and you can use it, create new objects for it. For example, const current date equal to new date, and then you can do a bunch of things with this current date variable. For example, I can do something like current date dot get month, and this will give me the current month, which we're in December right now, and this is 0 indexed, which is why you see 11. Ideally, if you actually want to log the current date, you should add a +1 to it, because this will give you the actual month. Similarly, you can do current day, which will be get date, and then you can also do the current year. Basically, if you want to print the complete day today, like date, month, year, you can print it like this. Save, and you see 5 followed by 123. 5 makes sense. Today's 5th. Today's actually 6th of December, if I'm not wrong. But it says 5 here and it says 1, 2, 3 here. Can you guess why? Oh wow. The answer is that, I just googled this. The answer is that get year gives you an integer representing the year for the given date according to local time minus 1900. God knows why. There is another one that I suddenly remembered called get full year that I think gives you the complete year. So 5/2023. The only question is, why do I see 5 here when today is, 6th of December for me? And the answer is, on my machine, it does say 6. Don't worry about how I reached here and how I ran it. I just ran the same code locally on my browser and I see this. This specific code actually runs on Replit's machine, and Replit's machine are in the US, where the current time is still 5th, which is why you see 5 here. Hopefully it's clear. These are the 2 functions that you get access to. A bunch of other functions, let's quickly look at. Current date, which is like just the date object. You can log it. Let me just copy this whole thing and paste it here, and let's look at the logs together. There we go. Current date, it's actually an object. So this current date is an object, but when you print it on the screen, you see it as a string. Date, as I said, is the current date, current month, current year. You can print all of these things. Date, month, year. Hours represent, today's, right now it's 7:30 p.m. 32 on this machine. Again, in Replit, it's not 7:30 right now, as you can see maybe from the top right here. It's actually 1 a.m. here in India, but this code is running in a machine in Replit. Over there, this is the time. You can actually sort of judge where this specific Replit server is based on the time, because this is the local time on that machine. All right. Get full year is done. Get hours, get minutes, and get seconds gives you like the current time if you want to represent it as the hour, minute, second thingy. So it's 7:30 p.m. in wherever this code is running right now, which is a Replit server. When I click on this run, it does not run on my machine. My machine may not have Node.js. It will still run because this code runs on a server somewhere in the US. You can also set functions, or fully, as you can see, you can set a variable here on this specific date. And once you set it, you can, anything that you do from now on this variable will have this year set. When you initialize it like this, const current date equal new date, it gives you the current time, or whatever. This variable has the current local time, current local minute, hour, day. But you can also change it if you want to, do something else with this variable. Thinking if there's a good example to show here. Usually you wouldn't though, you don't really use this. What is the biggest use case of this date class? We will see very soon. It's basically to create something like a counter, for which you need the current time, or to calculate how much time it takes for a certain function to run, which you will see very soon. Okay, get time. This is an important one. Let's actually remove everything else and just focus on this. Everything else is also like very straightforward stuff, so hopefully nothing too difficult. Let's just focus on this. What does it say? It says const date equal to this console.log time in milliseconds since 1970. This, there is some significance to this 1970. When you do get year, it gives you the current year minus 1970, as you can see, some 1900. Forget 1900 though. 1970 has some significance. If on 1970 January 1 I wrote, const current date equal to new date and did a current date dot get time, I will get 0. Why? Because everyone just set a current a sort of checkpoint in time. Okay, bhai, 1970 is the checkpoint. We will calculate the what's called the epoch timestamp based on how many milliseconds have passed since 1970. I think 1st January 1970 or something like that. Okay, so whenever you do this, you get back the total milliseconds since 1970. Why 1970? You need to pick some date, right? You can be like starting from 0, but that would be a very huge number. 1,000 reasons. I don't know. God knows there's probably a good reason for it. But 1970 onwards, the number of seconds that have passed, you get when you call current date dot get time. Let me run this. And it says the total milliseconds since 1970 that have elapsed is this much. Why is this cool is a good question. Let me create a function. Let's call it calculate sum. What does it do? It calculates the sum from 0 to some 10 raised per 6 and returns it. Let me run this code. It just logs this specific thing. Let me call calculate sum. Let's say I asked you, how much time does calculate sum take to execute? Does it take 1 second, 0.1 second? How would you calculate? The answer is using get time. You can be like const before date equal to new date. Const before time in millisecond equal to before date dot get time. And lastly, you can do by same thing for after the function has run. This is the after date. This is the timestamp after this function ran. And then if I actually find the difference between the two, that's the time that this function took to execute. If you don't understand it, it's fine. We will go through it very soon again together. Seems like there is some error here though. Can you guess it? This is a constant, should be a variable. All right. It says 0. But here did it take 0 milliseconds to run? Yeah, totally possible. This is a very small sort of number to calculate. So it's maybe less than 1 millisecond, which is why you see 0. Let me increase the amount that it has to calculate. Oh, now it's taking very long. This is a very big number that I gave it. So let me stop executing and reach a middle ground here. And let's see now. It says 3 seconds, but still says the time that it elapses 0. What did I miss? Can you guess? This should be after date. Hopefully you got it before me. Let's try it one more time. And now you can see it says 3087 milliseconds, which means 3 seconds. If I bring this down by 10, ideally, if you think of it, this should probably go down to 0.3 because I decreased the amount of calculations by 10x and hence the time should also go down by 10x. And I did by like pretty close. Cool. This is how you can calculate how much time a function took to run by using the date class. This was actually one of our assignments. So if you go back here and go to the medium assignments, there was a times.js class, and what did it say? Write a function that calculates the time it takes for a JS code to calculate the sum from 1 to n, given n as an input. So write a function similar to this one. It should take n as an input, have n here, and n needs to be sort of passed in as an input. Once you do that, calculate the sum from here to here to here, and then use this date class to actually find the time that it takes for it to run and see how it goes up as you increase this number. Cool. This is the biggest one of two reasons why you need a date class. This is the first one. Second one is to print the current time. So another assignment that I gave in the class was, okay, bhaiya, what if you want to print on the screen the current time, like create like a stopwatch or a counter? The answer is you can use set interval current time print, which will print, call this function every 1 second. And here what you can do is you can simply print the current time. How can you do it? Again, new date dot whatever get time. This is one way to do it. You can also clean this up a bit so that the final outcome looks something like month, year, date, second, things like these. This is sort of a stopwatch. It's an ugly stopwatch because it's printing the epoch time, which is like not great. You probably want to print a prettier thing here, like 7:32, 7:33, 7:34, things like these. You can figure that out. But that's one of the other use cases of date. Calculate the time of how much it takes to run a specific function and print the current time on the screen, maybe every second, maybe at some point. Cool. Date is done. Let's get on to JSON. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. What is a JavaScript object? It is this. We've discussed this many times. User equal to name, Harkirat, age 20, whatever, 4, let's say, even though I'm older, and then gender, male. You have this object. You can actually do users of name, and if you print this, you will see Harkirat on the screen. This is great. But let's say I want to send this data somewhere, to a friend, to another process that is in Java. How do you send it? Don't worry about it.
Alright, I was saying if you want to send this data somewhere, what you would do is you would convert this into a string. You can be like user equal to whatever, name, Harkirat, age 21. So what does this do? This sort of converts my object, even though it sort of still looks like an object. Replit. It still looks like an object, but it is actually a string. I can send it to the other side, and then the other side can maybe figure out what this is, maybe not. But I'm not restricting any JavaScript object types when I'm sending out my data. So this is one way, like one good thing for you to, be able to do. That is being able to convert an object into a string that looks something like this, and vice versa, to be able to pass a string like this back into an object.
I was saying I cannot do users of name anymore. If I try to do users of name, it says undefined because users is a string. You can't really index like name on the string. I can do users of 0, and that would give me, as you can see, and this specific opening curly brace, and then so on and so forth. You can make it 1, 2, 3. You can't really index users of name. This is a string. This is no longer an object. Why did I convert it into a string? Because as I said, if you want to send this to a different process, you might want them to know the shape of the data, which is like name is this, age is this, gender is this. But you can't send them a JavaScript object. They'll be like, what the fuck is this? I don't know what this input is or what this is. I don't know what this input is. For that reason, you will need to a lot of times interchange between a JavaScript object and a JavaScript string. And for that you need this JSON class, which gives you two high-level functions, JSON.parse and JSON.stringify. Name should be sort of self-explanatory. If I do const user equal to JSON.parse users, it will take this string and parse this into an object. So it will convert it into basically something like whatever, user equal to name, age, all these things. And for this new user object, I can actually call whatever users of gender, and that would print it on the screen. Okay, one more thing to do when you're doing this is you have to add quotes not to just to the value but also to the key, and only then sort of JavaScript can parse it. And maybe another thing I'm missing, let's see, extra comma here, remove, and there we go. It prints mail onto the screen. As you can see, I had to put the string here in a certain fashion. So let's just make JavaScript do it. Let me rather than using this parse method, let me use the stringify method. I'm going to first initialize an object the way I like it. So const user equal to name Harkirat and gender male, and then let me print or whatever, do a const final string equal to json.stringify, which is opposite of it. Convert an object into a string, and then let me log it. Now if I log this, what do I see on the screen? I see, as you can see, name with the double quotes here, Harkirat, gender, male. This is actually a string. I can't be like this, it will print undefined on the screen because this is a string. I can be like user of name. This will print Harkirat on the screen. This will print undefined on the screen. So you can interchange between strings and objects by using the JSON class. Particularly useful if you get some data from a server. A lot of times you get it in the string format, but it is actually valid JSON or basically valid string that looks something like this, that you can convert into a JavaScript object, which is why where the parse function is used. And stringify the opposite. When you want to send data out, sometimes for a different process, you stringify your data before sending it. You basically send out a string and not, an object, because God knows wherever you're sending that data, whether or not they understand an object, but everyone understands a string. Cool. Moving on. Math.js. So these are a bunch of high-level mathematical functions that JavaScript gives you. Feel free to read through the list. At a high level, the important ones are math.random, which gives you like a random number between 0 and 1. As you can see, it gave me, I should log it, 0.3. If I run it again, it gave me 0.5. So it's a random number every time I run it. Then there's maths.floor, maths.seal. Feel free to, Google these. But as the name suggests, this will give you the floor of a number. So for 2.3, it will be 2. Seal will give you the opposite. It will give you the ceiling of this number, which is like the biggest integer. The smallest integer bigger than this, which is 3. And what was floor? The biggest integer smaller than this number, which was 2. Cool. Math.max gives you the maximum of all the arguments you give it. Math.min gives you the minimum. Feel free to read through this code, run it locally and see what it does. Do you use this? You use this from time to time, not very often. Lastly, objects. We did arrays in simple because arrays are simple here, but objects are slightly complex. So let's copy this over and see what all we're dealing with. I've created a simple object called sample object, which has 3 keys and 3 values. This could be, name, Harkirat and everything, but I'm going to just, keep things like key 1, value 1, keep 2, value 2, so on and so forth. And let me call object methods, which is this thing right here with this specific object. Let's see what all we have here. It prints the original object as such. Then it says object.keys of object. What does this do? So this is a global variable that you have access to, the object variable. And what does it say? You can think of it as a class, and this is a static object on that class. And when you call object.keys, that static method, when you call the static method on this class and you pass this specific input, which could be any object, it gives you an array which contains the keys of that specific object. For example, if you look at the log here, the log says after object.keys, key 1, key 2, key 3. It basically got these 3 keys and put them in an array, and that's what object.keys of obj logs. Similarly, object.values logs the 3 values that we have in this original object. Object.entries is an array which every element there is another array. I repeat, object.keys is an array which every object is a string, which is the key of the original object. Similarly, value is an array which has all the values in the original object. This has both, and to be able to do that, the first element here is an array itself. The first value of this array is the key. Second value of this array is the value. Then the second one, and then the third one. That's object.entries for you. Object.entries is basically converting the object into a different sort of a format. But here and here, you actually lose on some data. You just have the keys, just have the values. You have everything. Cool. Has own property. So I can actually be like the original object obj dot has on property, some random property, and if it does, it will print true. If not, it will print false. For example, if I have let obj equal to name Harkirat, I can be like obj dot has on property name, and this will print true on the screen. But if I say age, since there is no age key here, this will print false on the screen. So that's has on property. And lastly, the most important one is object dot assign. This basically lets you shove more things inside an object, basically merge two objects together. So what does it say? It says object dot assign empty object, ignore why this is there. This is usually how the syntax will be whenever you're using object dot assign, and it says yeah, this is the original object, add these properties on top of it. So if I remove everything else and if we just focus on this, what does it say? This is the first object, object dot assign the first object and some extra things on top. What will happen when I call this? The final thing will become a merged object which has the original things as well as this thing. Cool. That's what object.assign lets you do. Cool. That's a decent checkpoint of things to know. What all have we learned? Level 1 may we learned some extra methods about strings, numbers and arrays. Level 2 may we discussed a few things like classes, dates, JSONs, maths, and the object.js, like the objects in JavaScript. These are all auxiliary functions that are good to know. You could also have known this, with time. I would generally urge you to look at all of these, make sure you understand them, and make sure you have a high level idea of all these simple methods. Again, this is very simple stuff. Usually a lot of this is not used, and you can just learn it on the go. But hopefully this was, at least for complete beginners, helped you get some really decent grasp of some commonly available JavaScript objects. Cool. That was all for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.